This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And you have arrived at your destination, which is Creep Street.
Whoa.
Welcome all.
Yes.
First off, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. We also have a TikTok where we're doing a lot of fun stuff. Maureen's doing a lot of creative and wild stuff over on our TikToks.
I mean, we give it a whirl.
Oh yeah. So go check that out. And on our Facebook, we have a little forum where daily we like to interact with our listeners. Mm-hmm. Our listeners will also post stories, funny stories, memes, whatever they're feeling.
Oh yeah.
We'll post too. We let people know in advance what our next episode is going to be. It's tons of fun. And dang it, wouldn't you know it, if once a week is not enough for you?
And I feel like it's not, you know?
Well, we have the salve.
Yeah.
For your wound, folks.
Yep.
It is over at patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast. Check it out. You can get all sorts of goodies. There are 3 tiers. Pick the one that fits your budget the best and enjoy.
Please do. We got some fun stuff going on over there. I mean, we're just out here. We're having fun.
And I just want to reiterate.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter. We have a $2, $5, and $10 tier. Even if you sign up for the $2 tier, you get access to every $2 tier piece of content we've done since the beginning of the Patreon. So it's not like you just get the stuff starting the month you got it.
Right.
You get access to the entire Patreon back catalog.
So, I mean, if you just for $2 a month, I mean, you are getting a lot of content.
Yeah. I mean, it's in August, it'll be 3 years that we've had a Patreon. So, I mean, you'll be getting a lot of goodies. But Maureen, I've talked a lot about goodies.
Yeah.
Let's set the right tone for today, because today is an episode that will truly get under your skin.
This is a very, very spooky, weird, upsetting, cuckoo crazy time story.
Absolutely. It truly is just scary, but also just awful.
Yeah.
In so many ways, and we will dive into all that now.
Yeah.
Maureen.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Today we are talking about the killer in the walls.
Who's that knocking at your door? Ooh, I don't think you're going to like it.
Might not be at your door, might be at your, wall.
Yeah.
Mid-wall.
This one is so depraved and creepy. Mm-hmm. Maureen, I'm going to let you take over. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wait to tell you my sources at the end.
That's a great idea. Don't want to spoil this.
I just feel like some of the titles of the sources might,
show your hand a little
exactly.
bit.
And
Gotta have a poker face.
We're trying to have, we're trying to build a fucking narrative here.
Amen.
For Christ's sakes. So we will just begin our story in 1986 in Massachusetts, about 30 minutes outside of Boston. There, Brian Andrews lived with his 2 teenage daughters, Annie and Jessica. Now, Brian's wife and the girl's mother very tragically recently passed away from cancer. And of course, this really deeply affected the family, and it made it very hard for them to really do anything. And it just was, of course, incredibly traumatic for them. Now, since Brian was now a single parent, he had to work even longer hours than he originally was to be able to, provide for his family. So that unfortunately left Annie and Jessica home alone quite often. Now, also, I meant to say this before. My sources, there's a lot of varying names.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure this family's name is not actually the Andrews. I don't think it's Brian, Jessica, and Annie Andrews.
Oh, really? Okay.
But that's what my main source called them.
Right, to protect probably their privacy.
So we're just going to stick with that.
Absolutely.
So, one night, while just Annie and Jessica were home alone, there was a call, and Annie answered it, and it was from a boy named Daniel. And Daniel was actually calling for Annie. He was another teenage boy who lived in a neighboring town and went to a nearby high school. He said that he got Annie's number from a mutual friend of theirs, and before you know it, they just kind of started talking.
And how old is Annie at this time, did we say?
So I believe Annie is anywhere between 15 and 17.
Okay, so she's a high school teenager.
Yes.
Okay.
And it seems like this boy, Daniel, is the same. They're like the same age. So, before you know it, they're just chatting away. I mean, this is kind of great news for Annie. It's like she's just, living her life in her house, and next thing you know, just a great guy calls her on the phone.
I mean, good golly.
I mean, it's kind of like the dream.
It's kind of a dream come true.
And they had a lot of great conversations. And, Daniel described himself as being tall, blonde, and athletic, saying he was the captain of the football team. Okay. I mean, Annie's feeling good. Annie's into it. And who could blame her?
Hey, there you go, the captain of the football team.
Come on. Now, eventually, Daniel asks Annie out on a date to go get ice cream. And Annie's like, yeah, for sure. Like this is like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go on this date. So she's, all excited. It's gonna be a great time. She's really looking forward to it. The date comes up, knock, knock, knock on the door. She opens it, and there's Daniel. But he doesn't really look anything like what he described.
Okay.
He was smaller than she anticipated, very, very skinny, greasy, dark hair, and just apparently just not attractive. And not that I'm saying that those things I said before make you not attractive.
Of course.
I'm just saying those things are the opposite of what she was anticipating. And then also on top of it, I think apparently he just wasn't doing it for her.
He wasn't what he advertised.
Yes. And also just kind of like unkempt, and I think a little like maybe not, a little unhygienic.
A little stinky.
Yeah, which we don't love. Annie is like a little taken aback, obviously. But she's like, you know what? We had so many great conversations and everything. She's like, yeah, let's still go. This is, yeah.
The biggest thing would be like, where's the blonde fucking hair?
Yeah, that would be like, you actually lied.
Because it's one thing if he's a little smaller than you thought, or so, hey, if he's a little stinky, maybe he just came from football practice.
Oh, yeah.
But like dark hair, like...
Be like, your hair is just not blonde.
Like that was just a lie.
I know that,
not that it's wrong not having, but I don't have blonde hair. I'm just saying...
No, yeah, but you'd be like...
It's clear you weren't telling the truth.
I would be like, we have to address this, Like, do you think you have blonde hair?
Yeah.
The whole thing, I think, felt weird to Annie, but this is what happens throughout all of history, is that women get a weird vibe from something, but they're afraid to be impolite, so they go forth and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because of society. But yeah, it is very sad and very scary, and we got to remember that we don't have to do that. My homies out there, we don't have to do that. Don't worry about being rude. If you have a weird vibe, just say no. Annie, also, she didn't want to be, like, shallow.
Oh, of course.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, so she's, like, going for it. But, unfortunately, pretty much as soon as the date begins, Daniel's acting super weird. Just kind of off and creepy, super odd. And Annie did open up to him and tell him about how her mother had passed away recently and how it was, very hard for her. But Daniel's reaction to this was very strange. And he asked really strange questions as well. Like, what was it like the moment she died? And how much did she suffer? not really offering any kind of condolences or sympathy or anything like that. So it wasn't long after that Annie did listen to, her instinct, and she was like, I'm gonna leave. Like, this is weird. And so she ends the date early and she leaves. And she kind of just thinks, that's that. Like, that guy ended up being really weird. But goodbye. And she just thinks, I'll never see him again. So not long after this, Annie and her sister Jessica are home alone once again. And they are talking about how much they miss their mother. And they decide actually to have a seance.
Oh boy, okay.
Yes, they think, and I think they might have even had a Ouija board, or they might have just kind of made it up completely what they were doing.
Sure.
They...
Well, it's all about intent, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, this wasn't any sort of like official, quote unquote official ritual or, anything like that. They were just kind of lit some candles.
It's kids with a Ouija board.
Come on.
Yeah.
We love it. So, they have their seance, try to contact their mother, and then later that night, the girls heard a lot of tapping noises throughout the house. Tapping and weird noises altogether, but specifically tapping. And it's coming from inside the walls. So the girls begin to think that maybe that's their mother trying to communicate with them.
Oh, okay.
So the girls tell their father about this, but of course, he doesn't believe them. I mean, classic horror movie shit,
Right.
The women, the girls being like, hey, something's going on, and then the dad being like, nah, nothing's happening. But yeah, he just kind of thought they were dealing with so much grief with their mother, and so he thought that they were just imagining these knocks and were kind of looking for anything, to be able to hold on to.
Right.
And he thought that, this eventually would pass. But then other things started to happen. Furniture was moved. There would be, half-eaten food around, or a glass of water left out on the counter. Just bigger things like that, not just tapping, but things that you can actually see.
Right.
Now, Brian, though, still thinks that Annie and Jessica are the ones doing this. But then one day, the girls are once again home alone, and they start to hear noises coming from the basement.
Oh my God.
I mean, basements alone, horrifying.
Right.
I mean, God. But at this point, they had never heard any of these, tapping noises that they were used to coming from the basement. And also at this point, they had really kind of given up on the idea that maybe this was their mom trying to communicate with them.
Oh.
They are thinking like this is something demonic.
Really? Okay.
Or something.
Okay.
Like that. So when they start hearing noises from the basement, they're very scared. They grab a knife and go downstairs, and there they see something terrifying. On the wall, written in blood, it said, "I'm in your room, come find me."
Oh my God. What?
Yes. So the girls immediately run outside the house and they go to their neighbor's house where they waited for their dad to come home. And once he did, the girls, were freaking out, telling him everything about it. And you know what? He didn't believe them.
Of course.
Turns out it wasn't blood on the wall, it was ketchup.
Okay.
And you know what? Brian says, enough is enough. I am getting you girls into some counseling, some grief counseling.
Oh boy.
I gotta say, I can't believe that's just now happening.
Right.
Oof. But then shortly after that, the girls hear a knocking in Annie's room. And when they go into Annie's room, they see another message written on the wall that says, "I'm back. Find me if you can." And of course...
In their bedroom?
In their bedroom.
Oh, God.
And of course, the girls run out of the house again as fast as they can, go to the neighbor's house, do the same thing. And when Brian comes back, he's like pissed. He's like, we've been over this. Like, you can't do this.
Right.
Whatever. And so he goes over to the house to, check in on what's going on. And he sees the house is, completely in disarray.
Really? Okay.
And the girls hadn't mentioned anything about that. So he knows, oh, something else is going on. Something must have happened between when the girls left and me coming in the house right now. He continues to look around, and then he looks in Annie's room, and he sees on the wall written, "Marry me."
Wow. Wow.
And that wasn't mentioned by the girls either. So he's like, oh, something is actually happening here. And that's when something caught his eye. Out of the corner of his eye, he thought he could see something. And when he got a better look, he definitely could see something.
Holy shit.
This part varies a lot about what exactly this person was wearing. But according to multiple sources at least, this person was wearing a blonde wig and holding a hatchet.
Wait. A blonde wig and a hatchet?
Yes. Brian got into, a tussle with this person, and Brian got the hatchet away from him, but then this man just seemed to disappear.
So it's a man?
Yes.
Okay.
But wearing like a woman's blonde wig. Some sources say that he was wearing Brian's deceased wife's clothes. Some even say her wedding dress.
Wow.
Some say Native American regalia.
So this is like Norman Bates kind of shit.
Yes, very bizarre. But regardless of what he was wearing, he just seemed to disappear. So of course, Brian called the cops, and the cops arrived, and they began searching the house, and they couldn't find, this person anywhere. But it wasn't until an officer found a hidden crawl space behind a dresser in Annie's room. They then opened up the crawl space and found Daniel hiding in the crawl space.
Oh my God.
The same guy that Annie went on that date with. It turns out there were tunnels or passageways within the walls of the house, so he was able to move around. They also found a handful of peepholes in the walls that was just throughout the house, so he could always keep an eye on them, especially Annie.
Oh.
And according to the police, it looked like he had been there for months. He had been terrorizing the girls, pretending to be the ghost of their mother or some other demonic being, and it seemed like he was planning on killing them that night.
Wow. Okay, here's some things I'm wondering.
Yeah.
How does Danny know about this crawl space and all these tunnels in the house, but the family doesn't?
That's a really good question. I do know one thing that has come up in my sources is that Daniel didn't find out about Annie from a mutual friend.
That was the other question I was going to ask. She didn't know who this boy was.
No.
How did he find out about her and get her number?
The idea is that he broke into their house, saw pictures of her, and became obsessed with her.
Ah.
And got their phone number because phone numbers used to be kind of like written on the phone, like the landline phone sometimes.
Right. Or he look it up the address and right. And here's the other thing.
Yeah.
She meets Danny and she's not impressed.
Mm-hmm.
He's awkward. He asks these bizarre questions. But when he's on the phone, it's almost like he's a different person.
That is true. That's a good point. It's like the armor
he swept her off her feet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting that he's like able to be that kind of suave, maybe even a little manipulative when you can't see him.
It almost makes me think of like a Scream movie.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too.
And of course, called flashback to our There's Someone in the House episode.
Yes, it really reminds me of this.
Where we talked about the Denver Spider-Man.
Yes.
This guy who lived for months in this house after killing this elderly woman's husband. And then for months, she thought all these noises and stuff was her deceased husband trying to contact her.
I know, so sad. Jesus.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our story doesn't really end there.
Folks, it's about to get a lot darker.
Yes. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Daniel.
Let's hear it.
Daniel LaPlante was born on May 15th, 1970 in Townsend, Massachusetts. Daniel was born into a dysfunctional family, and he kind of had a rough go of it from the start.
Right.
Quickly, right away in school, he was called creepy and weird. He was kind of a loner. People said he smelled bad. He didn't, have very good hygiene. Some people even said he would torture small animals. But court papers said that Daniel was subjected to, quote, extreme psychological abuse by his father, was sexually abused by a psychiatrist, possibly his stepfather as well, and then he also struggled with dyslexia and hyperactivity disorder.
That's kind of a further tragedy.
Yes.
Of all this is we haven't even gotten to the worst thing yet, which is coming.
Yeah.
But then you see the awfulness he was subjected to.
Yeah.
And it's like it's amazing how monsters create other monsters.
Totally.
And think about, you can't even trust your fucking therapist.
I know. That's so disgusting and terrible.
You can't even trust your fucking therapist. What?
Yeah.
Evil. Like,
it's disgusting. It is so horrid.
Ugh.
That like someone would go through all of that trouble to become a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
To be a predator is so horrible and horrific.
It's like, it just boggles the mind.
Yeah.
And then he goes on to do heinous, awful things. It's just like,
yeah,
these kinds of situations, when we covered them in our podcast, it just makes things so much worse, because it'd be one thing if he came from he was raised in a rich family who you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it just
makes it complicated, and
it just makes everything so nasty. You just want to shower afterward.
Totally. And it's kind of like we've mentioned this before too, about it's like the perfect storm of things happening. Like, this person is, potentially born with some of these issues, these mental health issues, and then also is born into a family that's going to abuse him. And you know what I mean?
And they probably don't give a fuck about his dyslexia.
Exactly.
Like, he probably thinks he's, like...
And that's what I was going to say, too. It's like, when I was listing off what was, going on with him, I wasn't saying, like, dyslexia is on par with, psychological abuse.
Oh, yeah, many people have dyslexia, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, that was an extra hurdle for him to jump. And, he already felt, so different and isolated. That on top of it, this, like, I'm sure he wasn't getting, like...
Right. You can't imagine his dickhead parents were putting
really
much of an effort into getting him treated.
Him with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he went through a lot growing up and didn't really have a stable childhood. And, and because of that, as a child, like we mentioned before, saw this psychiatrist who abused him. It's very sad. And then it's not a surprise that he ends up breaking the law. He starts doing these robberies and burglaries all around.
Right.
And not just like little things, not just like stealing, like
a candy bar.
Right. Like he's like breaking into people's homes and like stealing, valuables and cash and, like being violent, I think, even sometimes as well. So it's pretty extreme. And I don't really know exactly how, like, if he was living with his mom and stepdad during the time when he was like also staying in the walls of the Andrews' home, or if he was kind of like splitting time. I don't really know how that works exactly. My guess is he wasn't literally spending 100% of his time in the Andrews' home.
I'm still caught up in how the family didn't, unless they had just moved into this place.
I don't think so.
Like, how did they not stumble upon this eventually?
I don't know. Or maybe they knew it was there, but they just didn't think anyone would like be in there.
Right. Yeah, good question.
So soon thereafter getting caught at the Andrews home, he was sent to a juvenile detention center and was there until October of 1987. And once he was released, he pretty much immediately started robbing people's homes again.
It's almost like a compulsion.
Yes. And he always would like purposely make it obvious that he was there. Like leaving a glass of water out or eating some of their food or moving the furniture, like things like that he was doing at the Andrews' home as well.
It's like the Wet Bandits.
It is. I was just going to say that too. It is like the Wet Bandits, where it's like he's
got a calling card.
Like he gets off on like knowing that he's making people paranoid. Like I feel like that's such an intrusion, just knowing that someone has been in your space and you don't know it.
Right,
it just like makes it very strange. So eventually, Daniel is charged with breaking and entering and armed assault, but his mom paid the $10,000 bail to get him out. Now, either before or after this arrest that we just mentioned right here about the breaking and entering and the armed assault, he had stolen 2 handguns at someone's house.
Wow.
And he used at least one of them for a few robberies and this next absolutely atrocious act on another family. On December 1st, 1987, Priscilla Gustafson was a 33-year-old wife, mother, and preschool teacher. She was also pregnant. She was coming home with her children, a 2-year-old daughter named Abigail and a 5-year-old son named William. It wasn't long after they entered their home that Daniel broke in and attacked the family. Daniel sexually assaulted Priscilla in her bedroom and then shot her at point-blank range multiple times. Then he drowned 5-year-old William in the upstairs bathroom and 7-year-old Abigail in the downstairs bathroom. Then, immediately after that, he went to his own niece's 6th birthday party.
That is almost inconceivable, the evil.
It's, he didn't know them. This wasn't like, some revenge thing.
And this is after he's out on bail.
Yeah.
It's truly a compulsion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
he can't help but fucking do it. It's weird.
Yeah. It's like a monster. It's like a horror movie.
He's got to hurt and harm and
he's like literally like Michael Myers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, just terrible. So, tragically, Andrew Gustafson, the husband and father of this family, found his family at home and called the police immediately, of course. And it wasn't long until the police connected this horrific crime to Danny LaPlante. They went to go question Daniel, but he ran away into the woods. The police searched through his belongings, though, and they found a gun, the gun that was used in the crime, wet gloves, an item from the Gustafson home that he took, and a hair from Abigail Gustafson.
Wow.
Soon thereafter, Daniel kidnapped a woman and had her drive him around. She eventually escaped from him, and then Daniel was then found hiding in a dumpster about 48 hours after the attack.
Wow.
Even though Daniel was 17, he was tried as an adult and was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. So at the time of the killings, because, he was evaluated in the prison and everything like that, Daniel was diagnosed with conduct disorder, which apparently refers to a group of behavioral and emotional problems characterized by a disregard for others. And apparently children with conduct disorders often have a difficult time following rules and behaving in a socially acceptable way. Their behavior can be hostile and sometimes physically violent.
Wow, okay.
Now, apparently since Daniel has been in prison, he has asked for a lot of things and tried to sue the prison multiple times.
Apparently he's been a real pain in the ass of the prison system.
Yes. I guess one of his issues was that he said that the prison wasn't allowing him to express his freedom of religion, his right, because the prison would not give him the items he needed for his religious practices.
And what religion was this?
So here's the thing. Some sources say Satanism, and some of them say Wicca.
I don't know, but my guess would probably be more Wicca, and probably people who don't understand what Wicca is probably think Satanism.
Yeah.
My guess is probably Wicca.
Because one of my sources did say that, there were some representatives from, the greater Wiccan community that was like, don't, associate him with us. Some of the things that he required, apparently, were dragon's blood, honeysuckle, black opium, and carrot cake.
I mean, it's funny that carrot cake is the weirdest thing on that list.
Yeah, and is the one that I think he's least likely to get.
Dragon's blood.
Yeah, that I don't know what that
Maybe it's
means.
Not what it sounds like. Maybe it's like a flower or something.
Or something, yeah.
Yeah.
God bless. So, in 2017, due to a new ruling by the Supreme Court, Daniel was able to have a trial to see if he could have a potential appeal or maybe a sentence reduction because he committed these crimes when he was a minor, even though he was tried as an adult. During this trial, Daniel made the following statement. I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am so sorry. But a forensic psychiatrist said that Daniel was not showing any kind of remorse, and his plea was rejected.
Wow, okay.
Yes, however, he will be eligible for parole in 2032.
Okay.
Now, Priscilla Gustafson's family all went to this trial for Daniel for the potential sentence reduction. And the whole family wants people to remember the wonderful people that their family members were. And they also think that Daniel should remain in jail. Priscilla's brother, Reverend William Morgan Jr., said that he forgives Daniel, but like his other family members, he thinks he should remain behind bars. He says, I do not believe that Daniel LaPlante is repentant of his crimes. I believe that he will always be a danger to society and to our children. In my opinion, under no circumstance should Daniel LaPlante be set free. Priscilla's sister, Elizabeth Williams, said of Daniel, quote, he is the antithesis of good. Now, sadly, Priscilla's husband and Abigail and William's father, Andrew, passed away from cancer in 2014. But apparently he is said to have felt similarly and wants Daniel to remain behind bars for the rest of his life. So this whole story is so tragic, so bizarre. The story that happens before the murders, when he's living in the walls, the story varies so much from source to source.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, like, we know he was in the walls.
I believe so. I mean, it's in TV shows, it's in articles. I mean, it's all over the place, but I haven't been able to find, like an article from, the Boston Globe or whatever that says it.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a gray area. Something happened. Something for sure happened.
Interesting that sort of
we
legend
just don't
has built
know.
up.
Yes.
Interesting.
So something did happen, but the exact details of it could possibly be different. But what happens with the Gustafson family, that all did definitely happen as written, as reported by us. Yeah.
Well, that fascinates me if it's true about what we said about, like, the first part is on the phone, he's like another person.
Yeah.
And assuming the family didn't know there was tunnels and stuff, like, how did he know? And unless he...
Yeah.
But like, even if he broke in, if they had lived in there for years and not noticed, how would he breaking in have, you know what I mean?
Well, that's why I'm saying maybe they knew it was there, but they never even
they would never have expected
use it.
Someone would be.
Yeah, so they're not like thinking someone's living within their walls. And maybe he just, when he broke into the house and saw, the pictures of her and became obsessed with her, maybe he was just searching through the house and he saw that they had this, like crawl space or whatever where he could hide.
Right.
And he was like, oh, okay, I'll do this. Instead of him like having the original plan to always hide in there. Like he saw an opportunity and went for it. I don't know.
Wow.
But I mean, this case is so chilling all over the damn map. And like we said before, it's so complicated because, society failed him.
Yeah, it's true. That just adds to the tragedy is he had a shit life and got dealt, you know what I mean? And was surrounded by monsters.
Yeah. It doesn't at all make it okay what he did. And
of course.
Or anything like that. But it doesn't make you, feel sorry for him, but it just makes you think this could have been avoided.
Absolutely.
Now, Dylan, let me slap you with my sources.
Now we can get to those dang sources,
Maureen.
I
just think it's time,
Yeah.
First, we have an article titled, Neighbors Recall Suspect in Slaying as One Who Sowed Fear, from the Boston Globe. Then we have, Is he rehabilitated? In my opinion, absolutely not. Psychiatrist says of triple murderer by Laura Grimaldi at the Boston Globe. Then we have The Strange Case of Danny LaPlante, Real Night Horror Story by Joe Turner at parkaman.com. Then we have The Disturbing Case of a Murderer Who Lived in the Walls of His Love Interest by Shimbaga Lakshmi at medium.com.
Maureen, thank you for doing all of that incredible research.
My absolute pleasure.
Also want to give a quick shout out. Last week, one of our best pals and one of our Patreon supporters, the Archduke of Attitude, Adam Archer, had a birthday.
Happy birthday.
Wanted to give him a shout out. Maureen, I got a list of names I wouldn't mind crawling into a crawl space with.
Ooh, sexy.
Give it on up for our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finnish Face Via Lungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the Oh-So-Suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the Murderous Maggie Leach, the Sir of Sexy Sam Hackworth, the Evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire Hernandez Lopez, the Maniacal Laura Maynard, the Vicious Karen Van Buren, the Arch Nemesis Aaron Bird, the Sadistic Sergio Castillo, the Rapscallion Ryan Crum, the Beast Benjamin Huang, the Devilish Chris Doucette, the Psycho Sam, the Electric Emily Jeong, the Ghoulish Gert Hankum, the Renegade Corey Ramos, the Crazed Carlos, the Antagonist Andrew Park, the Monstrous Michaela Scher, the Witchy Wonder J.P. Weimer, and the Freaky Ben Forsyth.
Wow. Dylan, great job listing off those righteous names. And a huge heartfelt thanks to all of our top tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, to all of our Patreon subscribers, and to every single one of you for listening. We love doing this podcast. It is so fun. We love hearing that you look forward to Fridays, look forward to the new releases of each episode. It really means the world to us. So if you're a fan of the show, please, like, rate, subscribe, leave a review.
Yes.
Post about us on social media. Scream about us at a grocery store.
Please.
Write a letter to your congressman.
Yes.
About Creep Street Podcast.
Please. They need it.
Any of those things we would love for you to do. And
absolutely.
Thank you for doing it. We love you all very, very much.
And we got big things coming. We're working on developing our YouTube presence. We're going to start doing cool shit. We are so excited, and we are happy that you all are coming along for the ride. Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.